The third option. The third option is
ontology.
The third option is being agnostic and being indeterminate.
Throw it in there.
One at a time, guys. One at a time.
Okay, Matt, why can you be agnostic in terms of the gumball amounts, but not agnostic in terms of whether God exists?
Because that is a limited state of affairs. That's a contingent fact.
Okay, what does that have to do with it?
No, we have limited empirical knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to say, well,
Hey, yes, this is cool. You got an open mic, man. Thanks.
The whole paradigm, the whole range of everything. It's hey, if it's empirical, we can be open about that. We can just say, I don't know. Is that a correct epistemology? No, it's self-refuting. We can show it has its application within a mitigated realm, but it ain't the ultimate epistemology for proving all things.
Okay, but why can't we be open in terms of our ontology in the same way?
I just want to know, they want to inject a third category in there, but it's like, well, ontologically there's only two.
Well,
where's the third option come from then?
It's
just popped in there epistemologically.
It's a propositional attitude.
He just said the propositions ontologically, there's only bivalence.
That's not true.
Even talking about the nature of propositions, right?
Not all propositions, not all propositions
You're trying to disjunct as we talk about propositions apart from ontology. It's like fool's
yeah, we can do that. No, we can do that.
You don't do that.
Yes, you can. Because they're different things. They're different disciplines.
You're implicitly presupposing what you believe about the nature of reality.
Epistemology is about knowledge. Ontology is about being, right? And they're different.
I
different spheres.
already know that. But you're trying to radically disjunct them.
Yeah.
They have no relationship to one another.
There are questions that are about epistemic states and questions that are about ontological states, right? So it would be foolhardy to conflate the two if you're asking about epistemic states, right? And that's, I actually think a lot of people in the room got that, right? Like
yeah, it's pretty
I think
simple.
That there was some.
I think they're getting one up.
It's really simple. It's really simple to get. It's really simple to get. It's simple to understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you can be agnostic about which side of a coin is heads up or tails up. Right?
That's why it's being rebutted ad nauseum, because you keep asserting it.
You haven't rebutted anything. You just make statements.
You're not listening.
You have to make an argument. You have to make an argument to rebut.
I did.
You don't.
I'm trying to show you. You're trying to radically distinct two categories which are symbiotic. One depends upon the other. You go, no.
Well,
that's not a rebuttal.
What's the argument? What's the argument for that?
No, I'm showing you how intricately they depend upon. Epistemology depends upon metaphysics.
You're just saying that. You haven't shown that.
I show you. Okay. I'll give you the apple sorting machine again. You've heard this analogy before. I want you to devise this mechanism of apple sorting, your epistemology, to sort these apples. You don't know what an apple is. Totally ignorant of metaphysics. We don't know. We just want to create an epistemology in a vacuum. So I want you to build that machine where you put these things called apples in the one end. It goes through its guts. And then out of the other end, out of the one side comes the good apples. Out of the other side comes the bad apples. Could you devise such a mechanism if you don't know first a good apple from a bad apple? Because what we're looking at in the history of philosophy is, look at all these apple sorting machines. How do you know which one's giving you the good apples or the bad apples?
Yeah, that's an epistemic question.
Tell me.
That's an epistemic question.
That's a metaphysical one, because you've taken
it's
these things to
epistemic.
market, they're true
It's
and
not
false.
metaphysical.
The good apples from the bad apples. The true ones, false. That's what the analogy is supposed to be.
That's all epistemic.
How do you know which one's giving you the true and the false ones?
That's all epistemic. That's an entirely epistemic problem.
False ones?
That's an epistemic
the good
question.
Apples and the bad apples.
It's an
Which epistemology out there and corresponding to the metaphysic is giving you the good apples or the bad apples? You gotta look at the apples.
Yeah. yes. I need an epistemic.
So you gotta know something about truth or reality to begin with.
I need
a mechanism for sorting them.
It's all epistemic.
Everything. So how do you know what's real, what's true?
Everything you've said is about epistemology.
No, it didn't. It's metaphysics.
No, it's not. It's about epistemology.
Right? You want to say, you just like, empiricists get scared. No metaphysical bias whatsoever. Oh, they do presuppose everything's just natural and just physical extent in space.
Clerical
epistemology that corresponds with that metaphysical bias. The philosophical methodism shot down.
No, your entire argument is epistemic in nature. It has nothing to do with metaphysics.
Philosophical methodism. First we get our method, epistemology, then we'll apply that metaphysics, then we'll find out what reality is all about. It implicitly has a metaphysical bias.
No, it doesn't at all.
It's about we're neutral.
It's about whether or not I can know what is an apple or not. So the entire question is it basically about. Yes, that's epistemic.
How do you know what a good one is from a bad
Yeah,
one?
knowing is an epistemic question.
They're
Yes.
intricately related. You gotta look at the apple, though, don't you? Don't
Brenda,
you?
this is just
Don't you have to look at the apple? You take these things to market.
I
You go,
actually
"Hey, what's
prefer
good apple from
oranges.
apple?"
I
go,
actually think
"Look at
oranges
the
are way
fucking
better."
things."
Hey,
You're
hold on,
implicitly
clear.
implying metaphysics. You're trying
Yes,
to
I have
divorce
to
it
have
from
an
metaphysics.
epistemic. I have to have an epistemic model for distinguishing apples from
And
oranges.
it's
Yes.
biased. And it's biased.
That's not a
And
bias.
it's
Is it a-
biased. You won't admit it. Yes, you will. I mean, you have to admit it, but you will deny it. Philosophically,
Is
you
it a-
have to admit it. It's been proven
it okay
throughout the
if-
history of philosophy.
It's okay if we move away from
Even
the
Kant, even
apples.
Kant couldn't get away from it. He had to at least deal with half of the
But
metaphysical.
why did Eve take the apple?
Noumena
Your
phenomena
entire-
I got at least from the phenomena. You could be totally agnostic toward the noumena. So you split metaphysics in half.
No, so
you
your
just have to
entire-
have
your-
half
you-
of it.
Your entire
Didn't
apple sorting machine depends on my having knowledge, i.e., an epistemic status about what an apple is. So it's entirely epistemic.
That's what every epistemology implicitly affirms.
Yes, thank you for. That's my point. Thank you.
Therefore, your
Thank you.
epistemology
Oh
is
my-
not neutral.
Yeah, you
That's
just
proven my
admitted.
point.
You just conceded. Thank you.
No, I did not.
Yes, you
just-
did.
This
You
is
said
my
it's
point.
entirely
A
epistemic.
spectacular influence.
Nope. No, that's an epistemic claim about ontology. Duh. And you're going to be and your epistemology is derived from your metaphysics. Otherwise, you don't have any ground for knowledge. So they're reciprocal. It's not one or the other. It's both and. They come together in one stroke, as I said.
Thousands of words have been spoken, but nothing has been said here.
Hey, you guys want to say the
We're
same
not-
shit for an hour?
You
Like,
guys clearly lay
Yeah.
out. No,
Word,
no.
goddamn.
Holy
Well,
crap.
it's pretty simple. Your apple
if I
sorting
hear the
machine.
word
Pretty
epistemic
simple.
one
You're
more
not
fucking
listening,
time.
Brenda. Like normal. You never listen.
God.
So hopefully before this went into apple carts and that implosion happened,
So
we
then
got a
now-
pretty good idea of the difference between epistemic and ontological concerns, and why trying to like graft one onto the other is just going to make you kind of implode.
To disjunct them is irrational.
Wait, Matt, can I ask
Try
you
to
a
do
question?
this. Your only way of copping out, then you totally destroy any rigorous philosophy you actually want to do, because
Matt,
that's
can you
not the
hear
way
me?
philosophy's done.
Hello?
Hey, John.
I'm not really, so are you saying that if it's A or not A, that a person can't say, I just don't know if it's A or not A?
Regarding that.
You say only if it's God.
All right.
Right. If I flip a coin, if I
They're dealing
flip
with
a
a
coin,
different category,
yeah,
of course.
clerical error had a good point. Clerical error had a good point and a good example. If I flip a coin and then I cover it up, you don't know whether or not it's heads or tails, and you
Thank
can just
God.
say I don't know.
Thank
It does.
God.
You don't have to say
God.
whether it's heads or tails. It can be heads,
Thank
tails,
God.
and I don't know.
And I already
Okay,
laid
well,
out,
how are you not
have a
special
big-
pleading God?
Big jar of gumballs. Big contest. Who can guess it without going over? I already said that. So Matt
Yeah.
already affirmed that thing. I go.
So
yeah,
propositional
that's it, there.
propositional
And that's the
attitudes are
categorical
a
error,
thing.
because you're going to apply that to God and say, see, same thing. I go, completely different category, metaphysical.
What
Completely.
category?
What are the
category?
different? What are the different
Creator
categories?
distinction, man. Creator creation distinction. That's if you want to represent your opponent accurately, which you guys don't. But just to nip it in the bud and just get it through to your thick fucking skulls, you won't represent our side accurately. You just blend it. Oh no, I know you assert that distinction. We'll blend it on our side. I go.
Well,
Well, we just disagree that the distinction is real.
It's an external critique.
Matt,
You're
is the
judging
distinction...
Christian worldview, going, look how we can flatten ours. I go.
yeah, Matt's just
right,
claiming.
Throw that on ours.
Matt's
Hold on,
just
guys,
claiming.
hold on.
Matt's just
Okay?
Matt is
You're
just
not
claiming.
listening.
Matt is just claiming that
You
God
need to
exists in a
clearly
special
spell out
category
for
that
you.
can't be denied. He's just claiming that
No,
God exists in a
that is
special
our
category
position.
that
I
can't
know
be
you don't
denied.
fucking like it, but get it through your head. Don't strawman us.
No, you're saying that
Can't
God
even get
exists
the
in a
other side of the
special.
page right.
You're saying
Yeah,
God exists in
I
a
know you
special
don't like
category.
it. We think you're inventing it. Fine. At least deal with it. But if you can't rebut
You're
it,
saying, I
you have a
am.
position
I
that
am.
can't be rebutted.
I am rebutting it because you're saying that God exists in a special category
wanna
that
dismiss it.
cannot be denied.
That is our position. So you're
Yes.
going to have to deny it to try and refute it.
No, I can just be agnostic.
No, you couldn't. No,
Yeah, I
couldn't.
can.
About the claim that You can be agnostic about the claim that it's a special category in the first place.
Absolutely.
You can be like,
Absolutely.
If you want to represent the others, no, that's just stating your position. I know, it's on your side of the page. On the denial, that's on the other side of the page. It's on my
no,
side.
agnostic is not denial. And which has been explained like
You're
a
just
dozen
asserting
times.
it from your side. I know. You'll assert the claim. I know. I know people can speak the fucking words. Okay? It's what is true. Is what they're saying actually true?
I know, but
If there's intelligibility,
for instance,
they would say, I have this intelligibility apart from that. Well, we got to
Yeah,
look
but
at
let's actually get into it. Why can you not be agnostic when it comes to God? What category is he in that makes it impossible?
Creator and sustainer of all facts.
Why does that make it so it's impossible to be?
Man, you guys are really obnoxious.
Yeah, that is
No,
the
I think
same
his mic
creator
has
doesn't do
a
anything.
little bit of echo.
Continue.
All right.
Waiting. Yeah, and?
Like saying, like,
Creator.
look,
He's not creature. He's not part of the creation.
Wait,
That's
Matt,
the claim that-
what
that's the-
about
that's
that
the-
category?
Hold on. One at a time, guys. One at a
See him
time.
doing.
yeah. So if I say that this jelly bean is the ultimacy of all reality, right,
Hey.
and you have to either affirm or deny it, right, and then I just start adding properties to the jelly bean,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
creator,
Oh, you need to
ultimacy,
mock the
etc.
Yeah, you're in a creator.
That
You're the
doesn't-
creator.
That's funny.
You're
Stop
the creature.
interrupting.
Yeah.
Stop
No,
stop over
no.
talking. Let him finish.
Ad hoc.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the
it's
thing
called
is, right,
ad hoc.
he's just adding
Intrinsic nature of the jelly bean.
he's just adding
know what jelly
features
bean
to the
is.
proposition that we're agnostic about, as if those
ad
features
hoc
make it so that we can't be agnostic anymore. But the proposition is becoming more unwieldy, right? It's just like adding all these other, oh, it's ultimacy now. Oh, it's creator now. I'm still
We
agnostic.
never added. We're not the one
And
ad
like-
hocking. Your Christian theology stated from the beginning.
So when we say we're agnostic about God, and you're like, well, you can't be because he's the creator. It's just like, well,
No,
that's
you
what
assert
we're
that from your
agnostic
side.
about that
No,
too.
that's the assertion. No.
And when you say, well, you can't be agnostic because he's the ultimacy, we're like, well, we're agnostic about
Correct.
that too, right?
Correct.
So you
And that's
can't get
implicit
behind our
falsehood.
agnosticism.
Yeah, it's an implicit falsehood. Even though you make the statement. I know you make the statement. Look, you should say it. I say it 100 times over. I go, good. Say it 1,000 times. Say it 1,000,000 times. I don't give a shit.
Well, you
go
don't
brass
can't
tacks,
refute it either.
philosophical and theological underpinning. You're not dealing with that. You're just going, look at the claim I can make. Look at the
Yeah.
claim I can make.
And if I
Yeah,
it ain't
you're-
rigorous at all either.
you're
if
in a
I can
crea-
intelligibly
You
make
know how
that
it's a
claim,
farce.
then it follows
You don't like when
that
it's
that
exposed as a
agnosticism
farce.
is
You don't
not
like it when it's
self-refuting.
exposed as a farce.
So if I make an
Say it's
agnostic claim, and
self-refuting. It's unintelligible.
if I make an agnostic claim and you can't point out how it contradicts itself, right? And you can't point out how it like kind of fatally undermines me, right? Then
That ain't your worldview
all of a sudden,
either.
it's
That ain't
okay
your
to be
worldview
agnostic.
either. Your agnosticism in your worldview.
So is agnosticism self-refuting?
It just has nothing to glean onto. It's just, I want to float in the ether, not be committed to anything.
Well,
Not even
if by
that
nothing to
exists.
cling-
I mean, just really
if by
press that
noth-
skepticism to the hilt.
yeah,
Press it to the max.
if by
Doubt
nothing to
everything.
cling on to, you just mean that you don't know what you're clinging on to. Is that what you mean?
They're staying on the sideline shouting, I want to step on the court and play. I don't have anything to bring to the court.
Yeah, I mean, this is.
Yeah,
No, we
that's what
have
we're saying.
we have
Okay.
agnosticism to bring to the court, which is a
They're not on the court.
Oh yeah, it's totally on the court. Of course it is. It's a
Nuh-uh.
propositional
Don't say
attitude.
that. Shouting,
It's
"Oh,
a
man,
propositional
no,
attitude.
like, step on the court. I can't. I don't have nothing to bring.
Oh,
They
yeah,
can't
the
play
court.
ball. They
Yeah,
wanna play
so
ball.
like,
The court,
Look,
the
I feel like
court
you
is
should have
Hey,
been
for
treated-
everything. I don't know. I could be neutral towards that. That's all
Yeah.
I get from them.
the
you
court.
can be neutral towards it, and there's nothing wrong with that, and you haven't been able to show why you
Then
can't
they're
be
not
neutral
on the
toward
court
it.
playing ball.
I don't know what
Bringing
you like.
nothing to the
If
table
by
today.
playing
They're not
ball,
bringing
We
anything
are
other
playing
than,
ball.
I can make a claim.
The court
Look.
is having an attitude
How
with
about that?
respect to the proposition.
Anything
That's
else?
the court. The court is
They bring
having
anything. They're not.
the court is
They're
having
not.
an attitude
They're
with
saying,
respect
I don't
to a
like the game of
proposition.
basketball. I don't like the game of football. I'm not going to step on. I don't like that. I don't like that.
yeah.
No matter what,
the
they're never
pre-
going to step on the field, are they?
what the precept is doing is just trying to force you into positions you don't have to take, right? It's not a
There's
rule of
subjective
discourse.
truth. There is a truth or there's
It's
not.
just
So-
it's just not a
So
rule of
that's why
discourse
they
that you
don't
have to
believe
affirm.
you. There we go. See, you're
It's
proving
just
my
not a
point. There
it's
is
just not a
subjective
rule of
truth or there is
discourse that
not.
you have to affirm or deny every proposition. Some propositions you can be
Absolute
neutral
truth or
toward.
not.
Now the tag
Absolute
argument
truth or not.
fails.
Then they're not accounting for why
here's
we're
where
even
the
fucking
here's where
debating,
the
are they?
sorry here's where the problem is.
And there you go, 90 miles per hour, clerical. Here's where
The
you
tag
up your-
argument fails if you get to be agnostic.
Does not.
If you can be successfully agnostic, tag falls apart.
not
So
even-
that's why he's so
it's
interested
sub-rational.
in forcing
That's
you
like-
not to be an agnostic.
Yeah, we say tag doesn't work with the Eastern religion. Try and talk to those people who believe in Zen cones and self-contradiction. You have to get them to affirm something rational, otherwise tag won't.
Well, the tag is not a proper.
Irrational people. If they serve something rational, now I can deal with you.
So it's rational to be agnostic, and you haven't been able to show how it's irrational.
It has nothing. It's a vacuum.
It's just a position
can't
of
show that.
Hey, how do you think it's vacuum? It's a vacuum.
You can't show that.
You're like, well, it's not so good. It just has no content to it, motherfucker.
But okay, let's get down to it. I mean, Matt, why can't you
This is like something Matt
about the
Hart to
creator?
discuss. It's like, how do you refute the person who brings nothing to the table?
Yeah,
Why can't you be agnostic? Why can't you be agnostic about ultimate reality or the creator?
I've never seen. We got too many guys. Hey, hold on. No. We're not going to dogpile on Matt. Take one at a time. One at a time. Okay, who's go? Okay, go ahead. Finish, Brenda. Or Clerical.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Oh, I wasn't saying anything. But what we do bring to the table is our propositional attitude, which is that we don't know.
Yeah, like you don't like. Okay, so the tag person is the one making the claim, right? They're the one claiming that you have like it's impossible to be agnostic, right? And that if you don't affirm their God concept, then that means that forces you to deny it, right? Now the thing is,
I understand bivalence very well.
In response to that, all you have to say is, no, that's a false dichotomy, right? I don't have to affirm or deny it. I can just be agnostic. Now, if their argument requires that you either affirm or deny it, and it can't get off the ground because you're agnostic, then it's just a shitty argument, right? So maybe they should find a better argument.
Yeah, if you want to deal with when you say the Christian's making the claim, you dealing holistically with the worldview says or not? Because once you get into the minutia, now you got to deal with what you're saying I'm really agnostic towards, when it implicitly says on that worldview you can't be new. So, yeah, you were right the first time. If that worldview said you can't be new towards it, which is the Christian claim, or in the Christians could show that, you can't be, if you're antithetical to worldview, it's not neutral. There's no neutral stance. We're not just talking about, a God concept in general, or just theism in general. We're talking about the God of the Bible here.
If I may.
You're going to deal with the content of the worldview that you say, they're the one making the challenge. Well, I better look at what that worldview says. Oh, it says I can't be neutral towards it.
No, but that doesn't mean
If it's just a feature of your worldview that I'm not agnostic and I'm agnostic, then I have a personal
if the worldview is the truth, if you believe there is truth, there is either the truth or there's no truth.
So that's the easiest way to prove your worldview. Because if your worldview says that my mental state is not agnostic and my mental state is agnostic, then your worldview is false.
Jesus said, if you just don't want to deal with the whole Christian package, you got your own idea what you want to make it.
May I say something?
Look how we can twist it. I go, but you're not dealing with what the verses actually say. Jesus said he's the way, the truth, and the life.
All we're doing is adding another argument to the graveyard of failed apologetics argument. Your argument is terrible. Stop being a tag.
So may I say something?
Okay, thank you for the rhetoric, but I'm still dealing with the actual content. You're off into la land now.
No. So part of the problem is that Matt
toned repeatedly.
No, what part of the problem is that
and it's like, what else do I have to say? I just think you fail. I know you think that, but you're not demonstrating that. Okay? I'm showing you the content of what you're denying. Okay? And you don't even lay out the Christian perspective accurately. It's your little piecemeal version. All you're really saying is there's a God, and that's just a God concept, and we'll just make that as minimal as whatever. We're not going to deal with the rich content of what the Christian worldview lays out, what the Bible lays out, God's attributes, triune nature, Jesus' affirmation, he's the way, the truth, and the life. Okay? Now, if you're not for him, you're against him. No. We'll just ignore all that and just make these grandiose assertions. We're not dealing with the real meat of the Christian worldview. Now, you're the one being fucking lackadaisical, if I ever met one, because you just demonstrated it through and through. You're not laying out the stuff I'm laying out. Just to even say, look, I understand the other side of the page. Let me articulate it. Get it right down. Then your questions make no sense, or your objections make no sense. Because you won't do that, because you'd be exposed for doing that.
So the problem...
Wait. Matt, why would we assume your worldview when that's the very thing we're arguing?
I didn't say to assume. No.
Well, Matt is not able to. Matt doesn't
understand. Let him finish answering. Brenda, let him finish.
But he's going to go on for 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Well, look, Eco asked him a question, and he started answering it, and then you jumped in. Let him finish.
He did ask me a question. I'm not saying you have to adopt my worldview. I'm saying at least get the freaking facts straight. What we teach. Read a basic systematic theology.
Well, we
basic
do
stuff.
understand.
Scripture.
We do understand that basically
Like
you're.
numbskulls when you just
Oh,
go,
Matt, we understand that you're saying that you can't be agnostic to ultimate reality.
Jesus says
because
you cannot.
category.
And since
But-
Jesus
but
is
why
God,
is that?
I know you reject that.
Why is that?
But at least that's what the Bible says, and that's what you're rejecting, and that worldview that He is.
But why is
creator
it
of.
true?
Okay.
Why is that true?
I said, well, to reject it, you lead to absurdity.
What's the absurdity?
It's
that's
the
just
truth, and
that's
everything
just
against him is false.
so that's just his
To deviate
worldview.
from the truth, you're going to lead to philosophical and theological problems. That's
So what
probably
Matt,
all the world
what Matt doesn't understand is the difference between internal external critique. He wants to do an external critique on us, but he doesn't want us to do.
I'm
an
not doing
internal
that.
critique
I
on
know
him.
what it is. I'm just saying, get the other side of the page correct. You guys won't even deal holistically with our entire package. You don't. Piecemeal it. You fuck it up. So you won't deal with the full brunt of the Christian worldview.
No.
You go, no, we're only
You're
minimize it here.
not distinguishing between external and internal critique.
I
That's
know
the
what an
problem.
external critique is. That'd be like lobbing
Yeah,
something
but you're
from
doing
my
it wrong.
religion into
You're
yours,
doing it- you're
which
doing
I'm
it
not saying
wrong.
I'm doing.
You're
That'd
doing
be like
it wrong.
An empiricist. That'd be like an empiricist who holds to empirical epistemology to the hilt. That's not the Christian position. As soon as they lob that bomb from their side over into our side, now they're doing external critique. That's number one.
So
Basic
if we're-
question, assuming what they
if
do
we're
on
trying-
their own, and by implicitly, you end up strawmanning your opponent.
But Matt, if we're trying to do an externalist critique of your worldview and how you can be
internal
agnostic to
critique.
reality,
Yeah, internal critique.
what?
You're supposed to be doing an internal critique on
but
its
you-
own terms.
Yeah, but you're not
Why?
willing.
Why?
You're
Why?
not
Yo,
willing.
stop! Don't interrupt. Just let him finish, and then ask a question. Both of you are going at the same time on Matt. Slow down.
I haven't said anything.
Matt is not
Oh,
willing.
I'd love
Someone
to.
else.
Matt is
I'd
not
love to.
willing to allow an internal to do an internal critique on us. That's the problem.
You're not
Yeah.
claiming anything with agnosticism.
Yes, I am.
And
No, you're not.
Yes,
Just
I am.
That statement. Okay, what's your metaphysic? What's
In
your
my world,
cosmology?
in my world,
What
in
is
my
your ethic?
in my worldview,
The
there are
agnostic
Excuse
supposedly
me.
has nothing
Excuse
to bring
me.
to the
You
table
asked
in
me a
those
question.
categories.
You asked me a question. You asked me a
Because now you
question.
got to defend the worldview.
You asked me a question.
That's not your thing.
You asked me a
affirm
question.
Brenda and other.
You
All right,
asked me
okay,
a
okay.
question.
You're full of
Go ahead and answer. Answer, Brenda. Go ahead and
Okay.
answer, Brenda. Go
In
ahead.
my worldview, you can have propositional attitudes, and they can have a position towards a
What's your
proposition that's part of my worldview.
Oh, that's one category. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
it's
you
my
have anything
worldview.
to flesh out, or is it just
Yeah,
the surface level?
it's my worldview that I am able to have
not-
propositional
epistemology is not a
attitudes.
worldview.
It's my
Epistemology
world.
is not a worldview.
Yeah, it's my worldview, and I would rather
No,
that you
it's
do
not
an internal
a
critique.
worldview is a view of the three main branches of philosophy. Physics,
So
epistemology,
that's
and
one of the features of my worldview is that I can have
Oh, yeah,
propositional attitudes.
yeah, I know.
Propositional
worldview.
attitudes, and I would prefer that you do an internal critique and not an external one.
I can't just deal with the one minutia. That's all you have to bring. You're not
That's
bringing a
all we're
system.
talking about. All we're talking
You're not
about has
bringing-
been propositional attitudes. We haven't been talking about anything else.
Then one statement in a vacuum is useless.
so you're saying you're saying it's okay to have non-binary propositional attitudes toward propositions? Like you have no objection
Dude,
to that?
that's already been answered before. How many gumballs are in that jar? Really
So, I mean-
big jar. It's like 6 foot tall, and there's a whole bunch of gumballs in it. We can
Yeah,
play
given
against
that you said you couldn't work with it, it sounds like you don't have an objection
It's
to
not
having
parallel to God.
a
You're still not
range.
getting the point. What I'm telling you, and what got us back to that point, is you're not even getting the Christian side correctly. That's just so you don't strawman your opponent. And just all you guys do is knock down some shallow version. I'm like,
No, that's
well,
not
you guys
true.
can take a swing at us.
Yeah, that's not. You're mistaken, right?
Clerical-
Use
I
that.
brought,
Hold on, one at a
I'll
one at a
talk
time.
about
One
it.
at a time.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry
gonna
about that.
Deal with clerical's
Cle-
rebuttal right there.
Clerical
Anyway,
said-
I said, how many times do I got to bring up the scriptures that state this,
Yeah, but-
and clerical never brings them up. She's your
Matt,
version.
clerical brought up the fact that he understands that you have this
He never
belief.
brought it up.
Yes, he did. He said he understands perfectly that you have this belief
When
that
he
you
tussles
can't
with
have that you
Christians-
can't be neutral. But that's the internal critique. But our internal critique is that we can have propositional attitudes.
No, you're
So
just
we're not
getting the two
misrepresent-
sides of the page correctly. I know
We
you will
disagree.
say that from your side of the page.
We disagree,
Well,
but
ours was saying-
you can't say that we don't understand your position. We disagree, but you
No,
can't say we don't
no,
understand.
What the issue with neutrality is showing that the two sides, when you have that line drawn in the middle, that's an antithesis line. They are in antithesis. You don't hold to what we hold to systematically. Therefore, you're rejecting the whole package. There's no neutrality there.
That's false.
Even you want to claim agnosticism from the error side, it's still implicitly a denial. It puts you on the error side of the page. Since we have,
is it part of your
absolute truth?
Matt? Matt, is it part of your worldview that the Earth?
Someone's right, someone's wrong.
Matt, is it part of your worldview that the Earth is a globe that revolves around the sun?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's part of my worldview too. So we don't disagree, do we?
Hey, the part of the tag, this is what you guys don't understand about tag. We'll take anything we're going to both affirm. Hey, let's take that fact. Sun or the Earth revolves around the sun. That's intelligible. You don't doubt that, do you? You're not going to waver off
the
of that,
point.
right?
The point was you said that we. You said that we had to reject everything, and that's
don't over. Let him finish. Let him finish.
Come on.
Well, he never stops talking.
Out here. You already told me to lay out the two sides of the page. I go, good. We'll put that at the center of the T-junction. Any intelligible experience. You say, which side, which worldview can ground that? Ultimately.
But I just refuted.
You got to provide thorough, rigorous worldview to defend that.
I just refuted your claim that by rejecting your position on this one thing about propositional attitudes, I reject everything, and I just refuted that by pointing out that we both believe
the whole package deal.
No, it's not.
Let Brenda finish. Let Brenda finish your statement, Brenda.
Right. So he said that if we don't accept his one belief about propositional attitudes, that we necessarily reject everything in his worldview, and that's false because I just pointed out that we both believe that the Earth revolves around the sun and is a globe.
No, that's
so
one
not
mitigated
true.
fact. You said it's intelligible. Then
That's
you got to be
part
offering
of
the worldview that offers the preconditions for that intelligible experience.
A worldview is just a list of things that you believe. That's what a worldview is. It's just a list of things.
Network of presuppositions are going to fill in those categories of the three main branches of philosophy. Yet, that plurality needs to be grounded in the transcendental ultimate, a singularity. Because you got a plurality there. What the hell unifies those categories?
Yeah, the idea that you need to have some, first of all, that you need to affirm that there is some unifying force, and second, that you need to know what it is.
Then you have
why do you need to,
why, radically disjuncted and unconnected particulars. That have
hold on. Go ahead, Clerical. Go ahead. Go ahead, Clerical.
So there's this idea, right, that unless you can like give some sort of exhaustive account of like the nature of reality, that you're like somehow barred from being able to like, converse philosophically or make, statements at all. And this is just a massive non sequitur. It's just a huge foul non sequitur, right? It doesn't follow at all from the fact, even if I am agnostic about the fact.
All right, please don't overtalk. Just hold on. Hold on. Matt, let him get it out and then you respond.
Bite down on it and chew it hard.
Yeah, I'm not done.
Here's what Clerical said. Here's what he said right there in the
nutshell.
He wasn't done talking. He wasn't. He's not done talking.
I'm not done.
Guys, quiet. Yes, you will. Okay.
You want back and forth, or you want a 5-minute lecture?
I want to be able to speak and then you speak, and I speak and then you speak.
It's incapable. Matt is incapable of having a discussion of any kind.
Clerical. I'm not going to talk for 5 fucking minutes. I want 10 seconds, numbskull. Right on the very point you brought up. You said, here in a nutshell, just give us a pass on these things. Just give us a pass. We just take them for granted. See, just give us a pass. Don't press us on it. We just take it for granted. That's what you said. Implicitly. No need to press us on this shit. We just take it for granted. We can converse. Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Right?
You just give me a pass on that, Matt.
The thing is, look, fortunately, that applies.
You guys do.
Fortunately, that applies to everyone. Not just non-Christians, to Christians as well, right? If I asked a little old Christian.
Clerical, in our worldview, everyone's created in the image of God. So, that would answer it.
Cutting out Clerical.
Clerical, you need to reconnect. Like you're lighting up and no sound is coming out.
Look, everyone's intelligible. I go,
Matt,
that's the point. Yeah.
Clerical, we can't hear you. You need to disconnect and reconnect.
You see how he says that? Oh, look, we can converse. We can do this. We can do that. Don't press us how we can do this. I go, that's the point.
Coming through now.
Oh, awesome. Okay, yeah. So Yeah, the thing is, right, that just because you don't know, like, the physics of how an engine works or something, doesn't mean you can't drive the car, right? Just because you don't necessarily know the ultimacy of reality doesn't mean you can't operate within reality, right? The demand that you give some sort of exhaustive ontological accounting of reality before you convert is preposterous, especially because the only answer that a Christian has, the only answer to this that Matt can provide is a just so story, right? All he's going to do is say,
let me jump in a second. Let me jump in a second. Hold on. Okay, so we've gone through this argument earlier about like 45 minutes ago, and it seems like we're kind of rehashing it. So just a quick question. So it sounds like Matt is saying that these are two different categories. Like the car analogy doesn't apply to like an ultimate God. These are different categories. Is that correct?
You have to learn how to drive a car. You have to learn some basic fundamentals of how a car works. You do, yeah. And you have to know it runs on gas, and therefore it's a combustion engine. Even though if you know all the intricacies of mechanics, you know how to repair a car, you know the basic fundamentals. It's more systematically fundamental to know that my car it's a combustible engine to know my car is out of gas right now. That's more systematically fundamental, so that falls flat on its face. You got to do better.
Look, it doesn't matter if you think a car runs on unicorn farts, right? That doesn't mean you can't drive it. Just because you have some mistake, even if you are mistaken in your worldview about cars, right? That doesn't mean you can't drive a car.
Press the brake. You have to
So
steer
it's
the
just
steering wheel.
again, it's just a non sequitur. Imagine that I had some view of, imagine that my view of ontology was just wrong, right? It wouldn't follow that just because I had a wrong account for why I'm here or why I can reason, it wouldn't follow from that I can't reason. Like if I thought that math came from like the imagination of a sentient sea slug, right? If I thought that all the theorems of math came from the imagination of a sentient sea slug, I would be incorrect. But if I was still doing math, if I could still add 2 + 2, then I would still be, by definition, I'd still be able to do math, right? So the idea that your entire worldview collapses if you don't have a just so story about ontology.
It does, because you're standing on the capital of something else, bud. You just admitted that. I'm standing on someone else's capital. It can't be my own, because that metaphysics
Who said it's someone else?
Other ground, right?
Who said it's someone else's, right?
You stand on some other ground.
Yeah, like, imagine two people.
Light bulb went on for clerical.
Imagine two people awaken in a room, right? They've never been out, like they don't know what's outside the room. They don't know how they got there, right? And so one of them says, I think that this room is, at the top of Trump Tower. It's some kind of like a cage at the top of Trump Tower. And the other person says, I don't know what we're sitting in. I don't know what this is. I don't even know what it is we're standing on. I have no idea, right? The fact that the one guy just pulled an explanation out of his ass.
I didn't see a worldview ground facts yet.
The fact that he gave a just so story doesn't mean that he's in some kind of privileged or better position, right? It doesn't mean that just because he has a story and the other person doesn't, that his story is actually true.
Invoking facts.
Right?
None of
the
this
question
is
is
relevant. Yeah.
The question is whether or not he actually has a good argument for what he's claiming about the room. And if his only argument is, you can't explain it, then obviously he's just being hilariously fallacious, right?
Yeah, I love how your analogies are never even worldview specific. So they're bad analogies. They're not even hitting the hilt.
Well, look, and this is,
it's like the obvious thing where it goes, look how much stuff is presupposed. Intelligibility, they're conversing, they're invoking facts, and we say the fact of the matter. Where the fuck does all this come from?
What I said makes sense to you, Black?
A whole load of shit, and you're like, see all this intelligence shit. If you're just doing this here and they got the wrong error, and they're just out in no-known land here, but look at all the stuff they can do. You're still not addressing the worldview issue.
Yeah, I think we need to
fall flat on your face, clerical. Like every fucking time you come in discussion here, you want to address the tag, you never do it. It's always some mitigated analogy, which is pre-packaged with a whole bunch of loaded stuff you take for granted. I go, here's the problem.
Okay, I think we should
get pass on all these things.
Hold up, Pico.
You just go, you know what, Matt? I am. And then we're done. And I go, you prove my point. You're not going to give a rigorous worldview defense. It's just, no, I would challenge theists. Come on, theists, just give me a pass. I'm on my knees, begging, groveling. Just give me a pass. Don't make me do the philosophically heavy lifting here. Because you're not doing it tonight. You're not doing it.
What's with you and the groveling? Why do you keep always invoking that?
Just what you just
what do you think is groveling to you?
You just say, look, Matt, I can still do all this shit. I go, you're not addressing the tag. You just go, and look, I can do this, and fuck you. I go, you're not even dealing with the Christian theist. You're just saying, fuck you, I won't need to count this. I won't do the philosophically heavy lifting. Will not do it. Make these radical errors in philosophy.
Yeah. Alex.
You want to come in this room and challenge us. I go, at least have some good acumen deal with the actual substance, you come in with these hokey, false analogies. They're just not even hitting the brunt of it.
Alex,
Okay, I have a question.
The problem is Tag says like you keep complaining about me,
How much
like
have you studied? Have you read our formal
invoking
works?
agnosticism.
Yes or no? Have you
Like
read
you just
our-
keep
no.
you keep complaining about me invoking agnosticism, but Tag says I can't be agnostic. All I have to do to disprove Tag is be agnostic, right? That's how easy it is to fucking
Yeah,
defeat Tag.
Alex
Tag is so
Malpass.
limited.
It's just ignoring it.
Alex Malpass destroyed the tag and
Alex
left it a
Malpass.
smoking crater. He
Joke.
left a smoking crater
Joke.
where
Okay,
the
I got a
tag used to
question.
be.
Joke.
All right, hey, one at a time. One at a time.
That's
Okay,
your
go-
higher up that you need to
All right,
deal
Eco.
with, man.
All right,
So,
Eco has a
Matt-
question. Get him in there.
Yeah, Matt. So I understand what you're saying in terms of you think that in your worldview, God is a separate category where you can't be agnostic about God. But I'm wondering, in your worldview, what is so special about that category that makes it so you can't be agnostic about it?
Creator, ground of all being, location
it's a-
of ultimacy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
a God
that's not an
category.
answer, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
how is that an answer?
It's an answer to the question. You just don't like the answer.
Well, it's
You
not.
hold to that dualistic metaphysics.
It's a
There's
God answer.
Creator, and then there's creation, which has not always existed. He created of his own
Yeah,
will.
the God
Which-
answer is it's a God category. It's a God category.
But
Yeah, I
why
know
can't
you
you
don't
be?
like it. You guys get your panties in a bunch about
But
it.
Matt-
So fucking what? That ain't a rebuttal to our position.
Put-
Just go, I don't
put-
like that.
All right, all
Put
right.
simple
Well,
and
we-
short.
But
Put
we
simple
do.
and put
Go ahead,
simple and
Goose.
short because God is not dependent on everything, and everything is dependent on God. God is in a separate category from
offset.
everything which is created.
Yeah, he has a deity.
Yeah,
Nothing else has
well,
a deity. So he does
Why
have those
can't I
offsets.
be agnostic about that claim you just made?
Because if you say it is possible that God, that some fact, some caused fact is not dependent on God, then God is not the creator. He didn't make the thing that is not dependent upon him.
Well, yeah.
So by virtue of definition, that's a problem.
You can't
you say
define things.
poss-
I'm sorry. go
Sorry,
ahead.
when you say possible, are you saying it's logically possible?
It is not logically possible that there is a created thing which does not have a creator.
That's
Which law of
begging-
logic does it violate?
That would be begging the question too.
Let him
Yeah,
answer.
I'm just laying out
sorry,
our worldview, man. It's just like
Goose.
you lay out your side of the page, we lay out ours. I go, we just lay out our cards. You go, that's begging the question. You just lay out your worldview.
Yes, because it's an analytic.
No,
It's an
we gotta lay 'em
analytic
out.
statement.
Don't tussle,
It's like
okay?
saying that,
Goose. Sorry, I think this would be really informative.
As soon as we lay out
Goose.
our cards, you go, you can't lay out your cards. That's begging the question. No, we got to lay out our cards. See which one has a royal flush. Lay out the hand.
no,
Come on.
it's like saying it's not. It's like saying a bachelor is
Comparing
an unmarried
worldviews,
man.
That's what the tag does. Compares worldviews. You guys do
By,
not get that.
All right, all right,
Which
all right.
system
by
is that?
definition,
All right,
things
don't
which are
overtalk. Go ahead,
created
Goose.
have been created.
As soon as one lays out their system,
Sorry.
you're begging the question because you laid out your system. No, we're just laying it out. When you lay out yours,
Well, your system is question begging.
then the other side is too, I guess.
I'm glad
No,
they
Now we
admit
gotta
it.
tussle
But
then.
Goose,
You have to
We're
show
both begging
that.
the question.
You haven't
Now let's
shown that.
tussle.
Goose, what
Laying
law of
them
logic
out, because
do
we
I?
have to discuss them, Brenda. You can't be this numbskullish.
Which law of logic?
Hold on, we got two topics on here. Hold on.
I go, okay, then you can't assert yours. Now where are we at?
Goose, are you still there?
It's a transcendental property.
Well, yeah. So you said it was logically impossible that God not be the ground of all being, right? And I'm wondering which law of logic would it violate to claim that he was?
All things would be caused or have a cause, and God would be the cause. So unless there is some other cause which you can point out, then there is no way that you could have any. There's no way you could put things into context because you don't know the ultimate context of things.
Well, you're saying that all things are created, and therefore everything has a creator. That's a tautology.
There's a creator, and he created all of them.
Yeah, and the reason why I
Creator's
asked
not
what
the
law
same
of
as
logic was
creation.
being violated is because you said it was logically impossible, right? So just because I don't have an answer to a question doesn't mean that your answer is correct, right? That would be the fallacy of argument from ignorance, right? Which we don't want to make. So I'm wondering if you actually
we're not
have,
here to fill in your gaps.
if you actually have a logical argument for why God is necessary, right? And what we would need to see is some contradiction if I were to deny or not affirm your claim, right? Like, where do I contradict myself if I say that God doesn't exist, or if I say that I don't believe God exists? What law of logic have I violated?
You're starting logic now?
No,
From the
that
answer,
was a simple question.
From what worldview?
So yeah, Goose, you said it was logically impossible. So I'm just wondering what law of logic you thought it was violated there.
To confirm logic?
Is there another type of impossibility?
I think so.
Agnostic
Yeah.
confirm
So
logic?
there's, I think there's several types of impossibilities of possibility in the way that we use that word, right? So there's like metaphysical impossibility, which may or may not be the same thing as logical impossibility. There's like epistemic possibility, which is just which is kind of like agnosticism, right? It's just sort of being in an epistemic state of like, maybe, I don't know. There's nomological possibility, like what's possible within the laws of the universe that currently exists. But you said it was logical.
Yeah, I did. There is a contradiction. There is a contradiction.
What is it? What is it?
Things being created. Okay.
But we don't think
necessitate
things are created. Like we deny that from the start, right?
Oh, you believe things have no cause?
Well, created.
Whether or not you believe things were created by a god or a bang, it's still a creation story.
Well,
I mean, maybe there's some sloppiness in language. Creation, to me, implies teleology, right? It implies intentionality. But yeah, so like for the sake of argument, I'll say that there is a causal chain in the universe. Perhaps that goes back to some singular uncaused cause, right? So yeah, I'll just to clarify the question, I'll just affirm that from the get-go, right?
I guess I'm undercautious with my wording, so that was a mistake on my part.
No, it's totally fine. That's precisely what we should be doing, is making sure we understand each other.
You still haven't told us what logical contradiction is entailed by denying the existence of God.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear.
By denying the existence of an ultimacy and saying that things have prior context, you contradict yourself because you do not state the prior context.
What's your definition of God, Goose?
The ultimate reality on which all things depend.
Does God have other properties beside being the ultimacy of reality?
Yes, he has other properties.
Okay,
which
so
he's allowed to self-define.
Would he be God if he didn't have those properties?
Without the properties of God, there are certain logical problems that arise. We could go over them, but that's not currently the issue.
Well, yeah, so what I'm saying is like imagine that there was some ultimacy of reality that was a mind, and then it like killed itself after creating the universe. Would that be God?
Why would you put that forward? What do you have that would suggest that?
Because it seems to me to be logically possible, and if that's logically possible, then your entire claim falls apart. Because you said it was logically impossible that anything other than God, and your God has probably hundreds of different essential properties without which he wouldn't be your God. So if it's possible that any other entity other than the very specific God that you have exists or created the universe, then your claim is false.
For one, basic systematic theology, have you?
So what were you saying, Goose?
What was that, Matt?
I open a basic systematic theology, I can tell. He wants to talk about this stuff, and you're going to be talking over his head anyway. If I go grab my systematic theology from the shelf. You never cracked open a book on it, have you?
Goose and I have a lot of great discussions, so I love talking to Goose. It's fine. So yeah, what was your response, Goose?
Clerk hasn't read a systematic theology anyway.
Matt, can you stop over talking?
As the ultimacy of reality, God has no. God depends on nothing. By definition, God is at the top of the causal chain. So because God is not dependent on anything, the only thing that gives definition to God is God. So because God has defined himself, God has also revealed that he is the only God.
How does he know that?
What law of logic would I? So say you make that claim, right? That's a very long claim with a lot of propositions in it. And so me, the skeptic, I'm just like, why should I believe any of that, right?
So what?
Now you're the one saying that that I have to believe it on pain of logical contradiction, right? Because you're saying it's logically impossible for me not to affirm that long claim you just made. So I'm wondering, what law of logic would I be violating if I said I don't believe any of that is true?
Well, he doesn't have a capital. Doesn't have to be a logical contradiction. You just don't have the capital.
He was asking Goose.
That's the answer, Goose.
It's not a contradiction as much as it's a lack of context.
Then it isn't a logical necessity.
Yeah, so maybe we'll set aside this idea that it's impossible, because now the contrary is possible, it sounds like, by your own admission.
Well, your definition of, what's your definition of possible and impossible?
I thought we were just going with logical possibility, right?
Well,
so
okay.
It doesn't contradict itself. Right?
No, it's not self-contradictory. But what is possible and impossible is not necessarily determined by what is contradictory. What's possible and impossible is determined by what God deems to be possible and impossible. So it's necessary.
Could God make 2 + 2 = 5 then?
Nope.
Could he pick up a rock so I can't lift it?
Well, he's denying that logical contradictions indicate logical impossibility. So the question then naturally arises: could God say that 2 + 2 is 5? Because
God could have created a world where 2 + 2 = 5, but within the current framework, it is not the case.
So, I mean, the issue here is that why should I believe that there's that God is making these other constraints about possibility? You're just adding to your claim, right? But the whole point is that I question your claim. So adding a God who's monkeying around with possibilities and constraining the universe in unintuitive ways doesn't help your claim. Because I'm just skeptical toward the whole thing.
The claim is that God is necessary because he provides context.
But that's not what necessary means, right?
What does necessary?
Necessary means that that its negation is logically impossible, right? Necessary means that it can't fail to be by the very laws of logic themselves. Right? There is no possible world where it's not the case. Impossible world, of course, is a world is just a world that doesn't have any contradictions in it. So I mean, yeah, if you want to say it's almost like you're kind of taking common language and then you're just sort of making it bending it way out of shape to kind of fit your claims, right? And it's I don't like that word. I don't even accept the word possible the way you're using it now, because it doesn't mean the same thing anymore.
Jack Burton makes an excellent question. It says, could God make a married bachelor, right? And so that's a perfectly reasonable question, and most theologians will tell you that God cannot do things that are logically impossible. But you seem to be saying something else.
What logic is? Logic comes from God.
So he can
logic is a property of the mind of God. So while God does not do things that are logically impossible, because it is a constraint of the operations of his mind, it is not outside of his ability. So while it is something that he will not do because he has a certain attribute set, it is not outside of his ability.
So according to you, God could make a married bachelor.
No. No, Goose.
No, I don't have a good answer to that question.
I think it's probably easiest if you just say you can't, right? Like you don't want to.
Yeah.
You don't trust me. You don't even want a God who can do logically impossible things, because that just invites a host of problems, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's just like,
You
like,
are correct.
that's a majority-
I think you are correct that it is the case that God does not do logically impossible things.
Yeah, and that's
And that is outside.
Rules, man.
And that's a majority. It's a majority opinion among professional theologians like Alvin Plantinga and others that God cannot do things that are logically impossible.
Yes, I
That guy's a
agree.
fool.
So
too.
you'd be in good company.
I agree. That was a mistake on my part.
Why would God be constrained by the rules that he made? What?
Because
Well,
they would
I
say
mean-
that those rules are part of God's nature themselves.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
but I
look,
mean, does God define his own nature? Or I don't know.
Yes.
that's weird.
So
like,
So if he defines his own nature, couldn't he like break any rule? Like, couldn't that be part of his nature?
Yeah, he could change his
Nature
nature
is
such that he could make
constant.
married bachelors.
No.
You know, it's like,
he could
or
make
God
himself-
could kill himself.
yeah, he could make himself exist and not exist at the same time.
And then he
right?
could poof himself back into existence.
No.
I mean, but why would he kill himself if he already knows
There's
the
non-biblical
result of
orientation.
that? You know, like he can create simulations, like
That's why I
endless
said
simulations.
Browns can't represent our side accurately.
Yeah, but like so now that we're back on the,
Evolve.
firmly on the track, Goose, that that there are some like God is constrained by logic, right? If you want to say it's his nature,
God is
that's fine.
self-consistent.
But yeah, so like the
There
thing, the
would
problem
be, but
is,
here's the deal, though. Logic
That is such
does
a
not
huge assumption,
control-
by the way.
Stop interrupting. Let him speak.
No,
Go ahead.
go ahead and discuss it. It's just a huge assumption.
Go ahead.
Logic has preconditions. So logic itself has an origin. What is the origin of logic?
wait,
it's a human
how do
language.
you
It's a
know
language.
logic has preconditions?
Would logic exist if there was nothing?
Nothing.
Would we be able to would we be able to define what is logical and illogical if there was no mind and no world to extrapolate this thing?
Without getting into the map territory distinction about our concept of logic and like the features of reality to which they represent, let's just stipulate that it's contingent upon reality, or it's contingent upon existence.
Right. Okay. And is existence contingent?
I don't see how it could be.
How are we defining existence, just to be clear?
Seems like a primitive concept to me.
Existence, I would define as having a physical world, an ability to interpret said physical world.
Yeah, like existence is like is the thing that we hold to be different between like Sherlock Holmes and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, right? Like I mean, I don't see how you like if you have a good definition of existence. Honestly, I could use it. Like I'd love to hear it, but I think we like think that which actually is right, that which is instantiated in reality. It's hard to kind
Yeah,
of
that which is actual. It's kind of hard to define.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Because there's different conceptions. I don't have a conception off the top of my head.
Nick doesn't
In terms of
exist, so you don't
conversation, I
have
would
to
ask.
bother with this question.
Yeah, so I mean, like once we have existence, how do we move from something we both stipulate, like there like existence and logic, to something that you uniquely stipulate, which is God, right? How are you going to move from
right, I'm
the one
getting
to
that.
the
So would there be existence without a physical world?
That's a very complicated question.
Yes, God exists.
My concept of existence, I don't know what it would even mean. So it's like if there could be, I can't conceive of it just due to like my own limitations, right? I have like as a physically sort of located being, right? So if there was some non-physical world, I don't know what that would look like, and I don't even know what that. It's like I can't even wrap my head.
That's not really the question. Okay, so the question is. Logic. Do you agree with the statement that logic is contingent upon a functioning mind?
Depends how you define logic. If you mean like the rules of logic, yeah. Right, like that's something that minds use. If you mean like the features of reality that those refer to or that they recognize, then no.
Well, both of those things you just described are dependencies. Both the mind and the physical world, which they are extrapolated from, are dependent states of affairs.
So yeah, the mind is a dependent state of affairs. What's the argument that the physical world is dependent?
The argument that the physical world is dependent is that there is a causal chain of events which is not infinite.
It'd be interesting to know what your argument for that is, but I'll just stipulate that and then say that, you know, it's epistemically possible to me that there are some physical entities that are uncaused.
Such as?
Subatomic particles.
So those things have always been?
No, right? They came into existence from nothing, right? Potentially. Right.
So that still is caused.
Well, no, they're not they're not caused, right? They just pop into existence, right?
Well, how does that happen?
It just does.
Yeah,
it just happens.
Yeah,
so things can just pop into existence from absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
potentially, given certain interpretations of like quantum phenomena. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and
they do.
Your inductive sort of like, you know,
incredulity. Where do you get that?
It's been experimentally verified. We've done experiments that show that they exist.
You're talking about virtual particles?
And the Casimir.
That's completely different. They require space and time to exist. Before this universe, space and time didn't exist. Neither did position.
That's a weird.
Yeah. So the idea that like a particular particle's like position, right, is uncausally determined, I think is pretty persuasive. Even if it occurs within, you want to say like a background field of like, you know, certain states of being, right? And whether or not there ever actually was a state of nothingness or what that would even mean is quite controversial. There are numerous models of cosmology, right, that have like all sorts of beginnings to the universe, beginningless universes where the time directionality sort of goes infinitely in both directions. All of our intuitions about time and causation are really suspect when we get to like the horizon point of physical reality, or when we get to like, you know, huge micro or macro level scales, right, that we just didn't evolve in, that we don't even necessarily have the conceptual tools to appreciate or understand. Now, I'm not going to make an argument for quantum particles or anything. I'm just going to say it's epistemically possible and logically possible that there is an uncaused physical entity.
Don't nail on that. It's going to die on that hill.
What was that?
You're not prepared to die on that hill, are you? Could be that in the key jump thing.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely not. I'm a very strong proponent of epistemic humility. Don't pretend you know more than you actually know, or else you'll embarrass yourself, as I think has been very evident. Thank you, Matt, for
I must testify to that. I agree.
So where would you get the property set of an uncaused entity which you have not observed?
Where would I get the property set of an uncaused entity? I'm not sure what you mean, right? All I'm saying is that, as far as I know, that could be the case. It's a possibility.
Well,
right?
in the case that there are uncaused entities, those uncaused entities would lead to would be the start of the causal chain of events, because they would be necessary in order to create matter and things. Is that right? Because they would be the only uncaused things.
Well, no, I mean, they don't have to be. It could be that in the subatomic realm, uncaused events are happening all the time, right? I think that's actually quite plausible. Now, the beginning of the universe, right, the beginning of reality could be an event like that, right, where there is, if we assume for the sake of argument, finite chain of causal relations, right, there's nothing that violates logic about saying that there was a starting point, and that it itself was uncaused. Now, I don't have to make that starting point God, right? That starting point could be a physical entity, right? It can just be one that...
Right. But that physical entity, where did it get its property set? Where did that come from? Because there is in the case that the first thing was a physical entity, it would have to be a physical entity with a specific property set which allowed for the causal chain of events leading up to the creation of matter and everything.
So, do you understand how weird it is to ask for like what the properties of a non-contingent entity are?
I'm not asking for the properties. I'm asking for the. I'm not asking for the properties. I'm asking what provides for the properties.
Yeah, you're asking what the properties of a non-contingent entity are contingent on. The answer is nothing, right?
Same with God, right?
But the entity is non-contingent.
So what? What was that?
Yeah, don't conflate the term there. You're just asking what's the property set of the thing that's eternal.
But it's non-contingent.
Yeah, so yeah, like Goose.
We're answering the same way you would if we were to ask you, where did God get his property set? Like whatever is ultimately ontologically fundamental is going to be non-contingent.
I don't think he's asking where. Goose is not asking where.
Well, I guess the question would be, how do you know that there is a something which is uncaused?
I don't. I actually think that there are versions of infinitism that are plausible. I'm stipulating it for the sake of argument so that we can get ahead to the point where you demonstrate God, right?
How would you like me to demonstrate God?
The best way you know how.
What standard of evidence would be sufficient for you?
Some form of inference, abduction, deduction, induction. If you're aware of another form of inference, and you can explain it to me, then I'd be happy to consider it. Those are the three that I'm familiar with.
Define inference?
Inference is a chain of reasoning.
It's a conclusion based on the research basis of evidence and reasoning.
All right. So the reason that God exists is because God has told several people throughout history that he exists and has given his property set too.
How did you confirm that this actually happened?
Through the action of the Holy Spirit of God and through the Word of God.
Do you have an argument for the veridical nature of the Holy Spirit?
God provides the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit provides the knowledge of the legitimacy of the Word of God. So it is a self-referential action upon God. So God provides information, and the information leads back to God.
Do you have any non-circular arguments?
Is circularity...
Arguments are going to be ultimately circular when it comes to your ultimate authority. Okay, it's unavoidable unless you want to appeal to an infinite regress. Do you think an infinite regress of justification is feasible or viable, clerical?
Are you going to allow me to talk to Goose?
I asked a question.
I've told you the circumstances where I'll talk to you.
Okay, get the hell out of here, scumbag. Yeah, he's a scumbag. See, this is the canoe they want to raise.
Scumbag.
Hold on, I'm talking. He is a scumbag.
Why?
I'm not going to go into his history. He's well known for being a douchebag and a troll. He's simply a contrarian. Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
Bye bye, Brenda. Hit the road.